Started my independent career at Texas Tech University and just about 6 weeks ago moved my group to the University of Missouri. And my group sort of works in the area of solid state dynamic materials, pharmaceutics, and then also some polymer chemistry for capturing rare earth elements. But to get into the showstoppers of today, our first speaker is going to be Dr. Craig Hawker. Sorry, Craig, that was ridiculous. Yeah, I was thinking Chad because we were talking about Chad last night, you know, and how Chad is awesome in doing 2 talks. So, first speaker, Craig Hawker from the University of California, Santa Barbara. Craig is currently the Clark Professor and Alan and Ruth Heeger Chair of Interdisciplinary Science. Craig is also affiliated with the California Nanosystems Institute and the Dow Materials Institute. So Craig did his bachelor's at the University of Queensland in Australia, and then Ph.D. at the University of Cambridge with Professor Sir A.R. Battersby, and then went on to a postdoc at Cornell with Frichet. Prior to 2004, Craig was a research staff member at the IBM Almaden Research Center, and then in 2004 joined the faculty at UC Santa Barbara. So just like all of the speakers, I think for the entire meeting, the number of awards they have won is far too numerous to even put on one slide. So I'm just going to highlight for each of them a few recent awards. So Craig has won the Catherine C. Hawk Award for Entrepreneurial Success, the ACS Award in Polymer Chemistry, and the Arthur C. Cope Scholarship. So Craig's talk today is titled Pushing the Limits of Polymer Synthesis Through Controlled Polymerization, Click Chemistry, and Sustainable Building Blocks. And I think where Craig's group has really had a lot of impact in the field is designing functional polymer materials and development of novel synthetic strategies by pairing sort of organic and polymer chemistry together. So the first area that Craig's group focuses on is really in macromolecular synthesis, fundamental synthetic development, and today I think what we're going to hear is how he's using sustainable building blocks in those synthetic transformations. His group has also been pioneers in the field of self-assembly, so using copolymers in order to control self-assembly of macromolecular materials and develop structure-property relationships. And also more recently using some lithography-based methods to do some 3D printing. The second speaker of our session today is Dr. Jeffrey Moore, and Jeff is at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Jeff is currently the Stanley O. Eichenberry Research Professor of Chemistry, the Eichenberry Endowed Chair Emeritus, as well as Professor Emeritus of Chemistry. Jeff did his bachelor's and Ph.D. both at the University of Illinois, the latter in the group of Professor Sam Stoop, and then went on to an NSF postdoctoral fellowship at Caltech with Bob Grubbs. From 1990 to 1993, Jeff was an assistant professor at the University of Michigan, and then in 1993 moved to the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Again, Jeff's awards far outnumber the slide space, and so Jeff's recent awards are being inducted into the National Academy of Sciences, which happened when I was in the group, so it was sort of a special time. He's also an HHMI professor and has won the Stephanie Kolnick Award, as well as the National Award in Polymer Chemistry. Jeff's talk today is titled The Mechanophore Hypothesis, and I might have actually stolen the figure. I wouldn't be shocked if Jeff shows the figure in his talk. But really where Jeff's group has sort of excelled is looking at materials all the way through their life cycle. So when a material is first put into use, it's going to be functioning at 100% capacity, but at some point that material is likely to be damaged. And so Jeff's group has developed ways in order for materials to self-protect from those damage events. And then ultimately, when damage does occur, having a way for the material to report, self-report that that damage is happening, and perhaps even be able to heal the damage. And so the material might be able to go through multiple of these cycles, and then eventually will experience a damage event that is beyond repair. And Jeff's group has developed ways to trigger the transience of those materials. And so going back to either monomer or just degrading the polymer in some way. And then more recently has looked at regeneration. Our third speaker of the session is Dr. Karen Woolley. Karen is currently at Texas A&M University, where she holds the W.T. Doherty Welch Chair in Chemistry. She is also a University Distinguished Professor at Texas A&M University. Karen did her bachelor's at Oregon State University and then her Ph.D. at Cornell University, also with Frichet, so her and Craig have that connection in common. From 1993 to 2009, she was a professor at Washington University in St. Louis, so starting at the assistant professor level, and Karen went all the way up to a distinguished professorship and then was recruited to join Texas A&M University in 2009. Karen's award, again, very numerous. Most recently, she's a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, the National Academy of Inventors, as well as the National Academy of Sciences member. And as I've just moved to an SEC school, I thought this was kind of interesting and something to aspire to. Karen was recently named the SEC Professor of the Year. So Karen's talk today is titled Sugar Plastics as Designer Next-Gen Sustainable Materials. And her group has done a lot of work in polymer chemistry, tackling different problems in different areas. I think what we're going to see today is that first area I have, which is polymers from renewable resources. But her group has also developed a wide variety of polymers for use in things like nanomedicine, for drug delivery, as well as imaging agents, and have also developed materials for coating and electronic applications. So really sort of rooted in fundamental polymer chemistry and polymer science, but ultimately sort of capturing and touching multiple different application areas. So with all three of the talks today, what you're going to see, so all of them, the theme is sort of plastics of the future. And I wanted to just show a quick little life cycle slide of a plastic. And so when you start and you want to make a plastic material, you're going to start with some sort of natural resource and extract the raw material, ultimately design and produce whatever that product is, distribute it, and then it's going to be put into use. And ideally, that material will be maintained. You know, we do have single-use plastics as well, but perhaps maintained, and then at some point, it's going to reach an end of life and have to be disposed of. We're also looking, you know, if we can reuse that material or recycle that material in some way. And so I think all of our speakers are going to really touch on the challenges of addressing the life cycle of polymer materials. And one of those is going to be in using sustainable-based materials. Another challenge is actually having materials that are recyclable or potentially degradable as well, so that we don't have huge amounts of plastic waste. But as we move toward these sustainable materials, there are definitely some challenges that arise with that. And one of those is going to be performance metrics. So if you want to replace things like polystyrene or polyethylene terephthalate, you ultimately not only have to maybe use a sustainable material, but that product has to have metrics that are going to be comparable to what's on the market. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to put it into use. And so I think we're going to hear how these three leaders in the field are addressing some of these. Another concern is obviously cost, which is going to be always relevant if you want to mass produce. And so just to give a quick overview of the session today, we're going to start with Craig talking about pushing the limits of polymer synthesis through controlled polymerization, click chemistry, and sustainable building blocks. We'll have a discussion. Then we'll have Jeff talking about the mechanophore hypothesis. Then we'll have a discussion. We'll have a short break. And then Karen will be up to talk about sugar plastics as designer next-gen sustainable materials. And then we'll have a discussion and then move on from there. So with that, I'd first like to ask all of you to please join me in welcoming Craig Hawker to the floor.